2022. Yeah, hold that one down. And I'm on my way back from dropping off the kid, leaving New York City, entering glorious New Jersey on the way to Pennsylvania. And another fine weekend, a little bit short. They get that way during soccer season. And let's see. Things on my mind. Yeah, so I talked about Jupyter Notebooks and Jupyter Labs over the past few videos. And my belief that what we're experiencing now is really just the calm before the storm. Even with the pendulum having swung in favor of notebooks, yay data science, and then the pendulum having swung away from notebooks, all the notebook attention is now diluted over 40 different notebook environments. And VS Code is touting being essentially making notebooks not necessary because it has the same exploratory working environment, right? So the pendulum swings both ways, but I have full confidence that it's going to swing back to the usefulness of notebooks because, one, you really can do a lot with intermixing documentation and code. And two, NBDev, which I toyed around talking about in a few videos. And I don't even know if that's what I want to be the real subject of this video because, boy, talk about derivative things build on things. You know, IPython is built on Python. Jupyter is built on IPython, which is also now built on the web browser. And Node.js and weird stuff comes together to enable very derivative magical products that don't feel like they should be part of your primary set of tools, right? So I'm a Linux, Python, Vim, and Git person. I am truly old school. I didn't start out that way. I had a very open mind towards point and click, windowing, graphical user interface software. My first computer love was really the Amiga computer. I had the Coleco Atom before that, but it wasn't the same for graphics. Amiga had Deluxe Paint, and it made a lot of difference. Amiga also had screens, full screen apps that you could cycle through with the Amiga N key, and it had just a wonderful Zen flow to it. It booted first into a very Unix-like operating system. And then the Unix-like operating system, or shell that it started out in, or Amiga DOS, as most people knew it as, was quickly replaced with Workbench, which was its kind of version of Windows or the Macintosh windowing operating system. Even the Commodore 64 had one back in those days. I think it was called Geos. There was a lot of windowing operating system innovation going on at the time, which, you know, was billed as making computers usable. Now you had this bar of soap hanging off the side that you could push around on a table surface that moved a pointer on the screen, and now visual thinkers could use a computer. And today we have touchscreens with mobile. And there is a certain amount of truth behind that, right? It does open the door to things being usable by a more primitive level creature in us. Our, infant, right? Not infant, at least be a baby to reach to a touchscreen. Can, rudimentally use modern user interfaces like touchscreens. It doesn't take a lot to reach out and touch a button on the screen and see it have a response. So that has been overly, I guess, embraced or accepted, blindlessly accepted, as the new primary way to interact with computers. It's just not true. Anyone who codes knows that typing languages are consistently winning over other symbolic languages where you click and drag icons, because there's something fundamental being hit with text files. Text files are such a big driver in tech because they got something right. Text files don't have pixel resolution. They're not X by Y pixels. They're X by Y characters. Characters that you would type used to be designed to fit onto a screen, 80 characters across and about 20 characters up and down. A standard full screen editor, the way things were back in the days before computer graphics. So if you can imagine a time, your whole interaction with a computer was through a type-in user interface, a command line interface. And that still is very much alive today in what is really underlying all tech. There is never not a command line interface, which is handing control over to the more visual stuff we use today, which has intimate knowledge of some platform du jour and some, current hardware that's being stamped out in factories and is the, perishable standard of the day. And lots of money will be made on it, and this is where most of the action is in money making in software and tech. New product cycles, new releases, new features, new upgrades, new money. But it doesn't have to be that way, and there are more noble drivers behind tech, like extending human capabilities. There are tool issues at play here, very much so with the free and open source software movement. Tools are intended to be incorporated into our bodies over time. You might not think about it that way. It's not like we walk around with shovels and, cars built into us, as much as it might be joked about in Rick and Morty. We don't have nano factories unfolding the physical product out of us right now yet. Someday we probably will, or some schism of humanity certainly will. And it has a much slower process these days. And it results in such things as spinal cords and, internal bone structures. And then, bipedal locomotion as an extension of that. You don't see too many, bipedal crabs. Different life designs lead to different patterns, different existence patterns, different perspectives, different experiences. And our very way of viewing and interacting with the world gets shaped around that. Gets shaped around what we have to do as these creatures to survive day to day. And as it turns out, as we became more, what is it? It's meta. It's generalized. As we went from ferret-like creatures to monkey-like creatures to ape-like creatures, we eventually got to human-like creatures. And that from ape to human has a large degree of executive function built in, a large degree of the ability to view one's self as if from the outside, so that you can see your behavior, understand the positive and negative consequences and results and outcomes of your behavior, and then to modify your behavior deliberately to lead a slightly different life, to have different probabilities, different, threads of fate unfold for you based on sort of a pre-calculation. That's executive function, and that's what it is, to be human. Maybe some other animals have it, But you can't downplay what it is to have crossed over that step, because it allows us to like hurl along the road in these metal devices as we shuttle back and forth between living locations that would have been a lifetime's migration to get between, in days not long ago. And these days it's just, 2-hour drive. Hour and a half, I exaggerate. Oh, wow. Interesting phase of my life. It opens up the door to these videos. Where else would I shoot these things? I have aspirations of doing the talking head coding videos, but honestly, I code for work. It's what I do every day. And oftentimes I'm screen sharing with my coworkers. And when I'm not screen sharing with my coworkers, it's not like I could be broadcasting all that stuff during the day to you anyway. That's not good form. And so, I only rarely do my talking head coding videos, and I do more of these types. And people have expressed positive feedback. People have said they really enjoy these, and I really enjoy giving them. And I have different ways of thinking. This Linux, Python, Vim, and Git is from being often betrayed by technologies. And I see Microsoft doing it again, and they're at it again. There is nothing, turning a new page in Microsoft's history about their embracing of free and open source, their embracing of Linux, their embracing of GitHub. It's the embrace of, of profit, of controlling the habits of a new generation of developers, of doing everything within their power to make sure that they are predisposing your habits and your expectations. You'll never really know Git, because you'll only ever know Git as you know it through VS Code. And you'll never really know controlling text in general across diverse arrays of information systems. You'll just mostly know editing JavaScript for the full web stack in VS Code. There's words difficult to put them in, but it has something to do with vibes, essential vibes, right? So the creator of VI, on which Vim, the text editor so many people these days are enamored with, who are still abiding by old school, and it's really not even Vim that the loyalty is to, it's more the VI program it was based on, and then lots of different philosophical directions you could go from there. You definitely want to layer in a macro recording and playback system. A buffering system is good, traditionally tying buffers A through Z to, keys A through Z on your keyboard. So you can copy into your A buffer, copy into your B buffer, and paste from your A, paste from your, So these are standard conventions now, except the elegance details differ. Vim doesn't claim to be all that elegant. There's Vim script in which macros and stuff are built in, or plugins are built in, not so much macros. Although I guess macros are in fact Vim script. But I keep my Vim customizations minimal, right? So what do I really want to discuss here? What I want to discuss here is that transition very difficult to Linux, Python, Vim, and Git. There are many obstacles that I struggled my way through, and I find it unrealistic to think most people will do it. I just don't. I think most people are loophole-seeking shortcut takers, and they want to just wave their hands and have things work and take credit for the cleverness of the people who prepared the spell for them, the software creators. There's a lot of just run a wizard thinking out there. And machine learning and artificial intelligence is just going to play into that, as Most people just want answers. Most people just want parents by another name telling them what to do, how to live their lives. And you see this as like the rebelling against adulting. Adulting. The fact that adulting is even a word. It's just responsibility for yourself. There's a certain amount of things you got to do in life as part of a kind of a contract or a deal with society. And so you do these things and you get back in exchange what you're promised or told or led to believe. You get back. And sometimes your expectations and the societal contract gets out of whack. And then there's dissatisfaction because you feel betrayed because the deal let you down, right? I've gone through that, right? This is a real thing. And the thinking goes, I believe, in the modern world, that by the time the youngins are gunning for you, you have enough saved in the bank that you're living off interest. And you can adapt to any tool anyway. The world is just always changing. Just change with it and just change whatever. There is no concept of absolutism. There is no mastery of tools. Bullshit. That's not true at all. There are underpinning things that do not change, however limiting to your broader thinking they may be. Mastery of a specialized tool on a given topic means handicapping your thought process in ways that are tangentially related to that, because you will have a very, I have a hammer, everything looks like a nail mentality because of favorite tools. Those favorite tools start to feel like extensions of your body. And then over time, it gets incorporated into your body. Your body has incorporated foamy metal in the form of our bones. And it chose foamy metal over the much more abundant glass and silicon, right? So our bodies are long ago ancestors, the first replicators, were deciding what to take into its body to make use of. And it took in enough to do cell walls to protect its coding, its information. The first rule, of having, done something for yourself, the first rule of having gone meta is to protect your ability to do more for yourself and to continue to go meta. The first thing replicators did, one of the early things replicators did, is start building cell walls around them to keep all this, encoding, factory building instruction stuff all bundled up safe and warm inside first chromosomes, so the DNA gets bundled into chromosomes, and the chromosomes float around in a primordial sea that's held in by a cell wall. That cell wall now needs a way to bring in resources from the outside world for self-maintenance, self-repair, perchance replication, and, to keep the options open to do something new and creative. So every once in a while, something new and creative happens. Something is sticking off of the outside of the cell wall and it's wiggling around, creates movement. And you got the first flagella, is it called? When cell organisms, some proto-mobility. At some point, there's something beating like a heart. There's a proto-heart that comes into the picture. I still believe, even at this one cell level, I am not 100% sure. At some point, there's the absorption of things and the jetting out of the waste. And that creates another path to mobility that we see in the Nautilus. And so we see different life patterns expressed. And we see different vibes kick in, different ways of scavenging for resources, different ways of replicating self. And then, bam, we're self-aware enough to make observations like this, and we're a different type of creature. And if it is a game, we are an important step in the solving of the game, of the cracking of the riddle, right? Big questions can be asked, and pursuit of those answers can be transgenerational and relentless. Eventually, we're going to figure a lot of this stuff out. And it's going to probably be mind-blowing what we discover. And we're going to look back and we're going to slap ourselves in the forehead and go, oh, of course. And then we're going to see that certain people were intuiting these things. They were channeling these things from the great outside of the context of our existence. There has got to be some outside the context of our existence, right? Even if we are just purely math. That math is running on a substrate. There is something. There is not nothing. So, if that something is not fundamentally us and matter and human consciousness, and I think therefore I am stuff, if it's not solipsism, if we're not creating the universe through our own thoughts and we're the product of some other process, then there is context outside of us, context outside of this stage upon which we seem to be playing, and it will be profound revelation, perhaps satisfying, perhaps embarrassing. I personally think everyone will know everything. I personally think that that which we know as identity will be able to be tried on like clothing. Let's live a life as Mike doing his drives down I-80, back and forth, slip him on for size, see what living his life is like, because to some sort of outside our system beings, even if we have self-will, even if we are completely surprising in what we do, which I believe could be a lot of the purpose and meaning in life, in that the complexity is such that no computer could ever predict anything. We are only predictable upon the very material substrate upon which we're playing out. We are our own computer. There's nothing that can calculate our outcomes. Predeterminism is bullshit, because something like time, okay? I know everyone's time is different, but it's all stretching and compressing relative to each other, and like, prickly, pins being pushed through a substrate, so it can zigzag this way and that, but it all stays internally consistent. So whatever time is, as beings, we feel like we have it and we're moving through it. And the reality is so much stranger. So it's hard not to believe that we've already channeled the reality. And in the making of our movies and the making of our reality TV, how could it be that we are not ourselves movies and reality TV? How could it be that we are ourselves not the characters in some Truman Show? And I know that leads to a lot of apocalyptic and existential crisis-y thinking. But I propose to you that it does not have to. The fact that, most lines of reasoning lead to we are some sort of simulation in something like a game does not belittle our existence, not in the tiniest bit. I would propose to you that whatever creatures could set things in motion, such as our existence, are beyond that kind of pettiness. They sincerely want the answers to the kinds of questions we're pursuing with our material lives. So it's a lot like the visions of perhaps the, Greek gods looking down on humankind as a form of entertainment. And with it being conceivably possible in some way for those, call them what you will, extra-dimensional beings, they can either be larger and more complex and more nuanced and more along every dimension, and this is where we're going to talk about our four-dimensional beings, or four spatial dimensional beings, because if you count time as a dimension, as Einstein liked to, then these beings are living in a fifth dimension, the fourth spatial dimension, and they're higher order in tesseracts and stuff, Doctor Who stuff. But there's also the other direction, where beings are much more like Tron light cycles, living in a two-dimensional world, zigzagging across planar surfaces, encountering each other, able to do interactions and having relations to each other that would imply surrounding, imply capturing, consuming, that would imply dancing, and rhythms, and races, and games of ping pong like stuff, colliding games. So lots of interesting interaction. The API on a planar surface is actually quite interesting, the Tron light cycle. So that's the other direction, that's going down by one dimension. And my personal belief is that is closer to reality than we are in our three-dimensional world. Things are probably zipping around on the surface of a sphere, like universes that exist on the surface of black holes, and we're a holographic projection, right? That's one of those models of reality that's out there. Maybe as an alternative to quantum gravity and quantum loop gravity. So, winners and losers are sorting themselves out. The string and the super symmetrical string people are a little bit in the doldrums right now, because the experiments being carried out by the new generation of particle accelerators are not bearing out the predictions that string theory is hoping for. It's not discovering the new particles string theory would predict. However, it has also not disproven any of the string theories, and it has not proven or disproven any of the quantum gravity theories. However, we are waiting for certain predictions made by quantum loop gravity to be heard. Those predictions being certain types of echoes of the explosions of primordial black holes, gravity waves that we should be able to listen to like we do radio waves today. Weird stuff, weird sci-fi stuff for sure, but radio waves were sci-fi stuff before their existence was inferred that they should exist, and we should be able to modulate and transmit meaningful signals. And look at where we are today. I'll be uploading this to YouTube, I guess beginning with a satellite connection before I get home, and it switches seamlessly over to a cable connection. It's really quite magical. Our modern world is miracles built on miracles built on miracles already today. And the only real downside to it all is the extreme profit incentive built into it, and the tight guarding of the intellectual property, and the just general proprietary, withholding for the good of, from the good of humanity for the good of particular companies. But that's why we have intellectual property law. That's why patents expire after certain numbers of years. So, and, the free and open source movement. So there's painful growth experiences. And again, my mind goes back to Dune. It's easy to clone someone from their DNA, but it's hard to get them to recover the ancestral memory that body had in prior lives. Until they do, they're a golem. And a golem doesn't become aware of its history of existence in prior lives unless some dramatic event shifts its perspective, makes that world accessible to it. There's something like that, certainly, in switching to the command line interface. Oh boy, is that a adjustment in thinking. And there are ways onto it. There's transitional ways onto it. I am just on the verge of teaching my wife Vim and how to do daily journaling in the VIM text editor the way I do. I think in Vim. It's one of my secret weapons as a person in life. It's my grounding. I find stability in being able to use this full screen text editor, character-based text editor. It doesn't need graphics to run. The environment you run it in is the emulation of a pre-graphics computer. And it strips out so much nonsense, so much of the, call it higher order being, the, three-dimensional space, the point and click, every implementation is different and special aspect of using computer software. It's just terrible. It ruins your computer, it ruins your muscle memory, it ruins your computer skills. It corrodes away constantly at your computer skills by taking everything that you know and making it no longer apply to the tools that are used today, to the techniques that are used today. And that's just wrong. With so much of what's used today, direct descendants of what was first imagined in the 1960s, with just a few new things here sprinkled on, but not as much as you think. All that concurrency stuff has existed for years in, OpenVax and Erlang. There's nothing new about concurrency. It's just reaching the mainstream because the web and JavaScript and the Go language. And, there's nothing new about virtual machines and containerizations. We were CH rooting in Unix back in my day before there was even the idea of containerization. And it's a better way of, taking advantage of your resources because you want them running at full speed. Virtualization, in the sense most people think about it, has a performance penalty because machine instructions have to be converted to other machine instructions. Even if it's emulating the same machine architecture, there's overhead in making it look like another computer. The same is true when it's just resource management and, containerization instead of virtualization. The Docker tricks and the LXD tricks are all similar tricks to virtualization, but we call it containerization because it's less moving parts. It's trusting the hardware that's there more than having all these software layers emulating common hardware. It's like, modern hardware is smart enough to have its resources allocated, so here's a formal way of doing it, containerization. I like it. I like having access to that world under Windows. If someone's going to put out some great hardware at a great price point and take care of all the driver issues and all the nonsense of keeping a modern complex piece of hardware up to date at their expense and give me Linux on that box, I'll take it. And I took it, and the mind gets altered. The mind gets altered in the same way, how they talk about the brain of an engineer. Engineers just think differently, as do salespeople. Cops do as well. There's a chemical rewiring that occurs in the brains of certain people in certain professions because the necessity to think in certain ways is so important to your effectiveness in that field. And in the case of police and, other martial professions, your very survival depends on it. Not having to think with your executive brain, yet to survive immediate physical threat, to have committed to memory the right things to do when certain situations arise without having to think. It's in a lookup table. It's out of, the need for an exploratory environment, and has moved over to if then that. Click word, know how to do it. That click word, automatic know how to do it, is both the road to mastery and obsolescence. They go hand in hand. Stateful things get disrupted. Stateful things are made that way and contain that snapshot of some exterior world because doing so gives it some advantage in surviving. But when the outside world changes rapidly, having that internal copy of it becomes more a liability than an asset, and then you get out of sync with the real world, and existential crises kick in, and all that nonsense. I wasted my life stuff. Don't waste your life. Take up free and open source. Simple as that. Really, it is. For the people who are putting down Wikipedia as a silly endeavor and not quotable in homework, surprise! #1 source of information on many niche topics, because it's hard to centralize the world's information. And not everyone is out to be cheaters. It's only about ever half the world. And so the non-cheaters have to maintain control of the important systems. You can't let the cheaters get control of, DNS, generic search, organic search. Google can't become GQ magazine through and through. They have to allow some genuine articles, some editorial content to sort of peek through in the form of objective-esque top 10 search results when you search on keywords. Is it going to stay working that way for a while? I think so. Just rely on this. A search is just a search, while computers are not yet our parents. And then a crossover occurs. And we won't want to call them that, but we're going to let them play that role in our lives. And the Siris and the Bixbys and the Alexas are just going to be able to do everything for us, having to do with paperwork and reminders and prodding you along to events you are meaning to attend, to get you there safely, to, remind you of people's names and dates you need to remember, and basically be the safety net version of you running as you. Our lifetime easily brought to you by every corporation who wants that level of knowledge of your life so that they can sell you services more effectively. Advertising offset parents. Our lifetime, inevitable. Bigger trend than digital billboards around us, because you can only flash messages at people so much. Much more effective is to raise them. Raise them from infants, because everyone can use a robot babysitter. Asimov had everything right. Read all of don't read all of Asimov's work, but that's like 300 books, fiction and nonfiction. Read the Robot series, the one that's a compilation of the short stories. I think it's the iRobot series, and then you can move on to the ones which are essentially Lieutenant Data. Data from Star Trek, but as a police person instead. Right? So Data was lifted from Asimov. They admit it. It's like Asimov's vision of robots. It's like, if we could build a Data, why aren't there armies of Data? Why isn't all of Starfleet just like this superhuman robot? Well, the premise goes that there is often something special. There's often something special. And the process by which the positronic brain was made in Asimov's world is a process that is perhaps a little bit mystery, even to the company that made them. They knew how to make a positronic brain, but they could not tell you exactly how they work. They just knew that they did. A lot like the way human brains work. Every human brain is self-programmed. It's called growing up. There's overarching patterns, like what role the left side of the brain typically plays and what role the right side of the brain typically plays, and the part that connects the left and the right brain. And we know about disabilities when that thing is broken and the weirdness that happens, and how thought is an emergent property of all these different systems going on in there, and how how sentience and consciousness is not necessarily all that we think it is. We just see a language engine sprinkled on top that makes us able to narrate in videos like this, and we think that's what it is to be human, but that's only channeling a small, an important but small piece of what it is to be human and what it is to be a meta being, a self-aware, sentient being, and for sure, the self-similarity of something that exists on different scales. Down, lower dimensional, something like humans probably exists on that Tron light cycle 2D world. One might call them angels, however many can exist on a pinpoint, that kind of thinking. And then in the other direction, where all our existence, the whole world that we know, is but a mere cross-section slice of a higher dimensional world. It's one of the many views of the many worlds theory, the multiverse. If our universe is a two-dimensionally thin cross-section of a larger thing, what is that larger thing? Well, as you take cross-section samples, you can see parallel universes gradually shift and change. Who knows what this larger shape is like? Is it lemon-shaped going towards points that realities become simpler and we become like geometrically flattened out versions of ourselves, like filtered artwork? Who knows? Who knows? It may be fun to think about, but all we know is that we are experiencing our experience from our unique perspective. And all evidence indicates that every other creature like us is doing the same thing, and that there is experience of a sort by seemingly infinite other creatures and things unlike us. Many similarities in primates, mammals, predators. We ourselves are not direct on that predator path. We're more like generalists that dabble in predation. Yeah, I guess that's what we do. We dabble in predation. We can imagine things and make many possibilities come into reality that the odds are really against. Really stacked against that whale popping into existence next to a plant plummeting down through the sky. And the thoughts going through their heads was generated by the improbability engine in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The drive of the improbability engine that Zaphod toolbox, and his companions, Arthur Dent and Ford Prefect, take gallivanting around the galaxy, the universe. Max Tegmark, I think. Max Shapiro, something like that. Draws a picture of a multi-worlds theory testing machine where a machine gun goes off at random, alternating between blanks and real bullets. And the way to test it is to lower your head in front of its stream, and it goes from alternating between blanks and real bullets to just the clicks of the blank, click, 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 the empties. And then you remove your head from in front of the stream, and then it immediately goes back to the alternating between actual bangs and the clicks. Crazy, crazy stuff for testing multiverse theory. The waveform never collapses, ladies and gentlemen. The waveform never collapses, and it is as humbling of a concept as when Copernicus and Galileo put us no longer at the center of the universe. And it becomes very humbling that our planet is just one of countless planets, that our whole galaxy is one of countless galaxies, that our galactic cluster is one of countless galactic clusters. And then what? We don't know, because observable universe ends. Their scales, they're inconceivable. Apparently, that word does not mean what you think it means. The human brain can easily be conceived beyond galactic clusters. This concept that we've ran up to some limit is just nonsense. We have achieved kind of the infinity in our brains. It goes another level out, okay, it goes another level out. It wraps around itself in some sort of donut shape, okay, it wraps around itself in some donut shape. There's a few concepts that are truly difficult. To imagine true nothingness is one of them. What is the absence of all things? It's a tough one. Absence of time, perhaps a little easier. I think a lot of practice is going on in a lot of people's heads with the predictions of quantum loop gravity, with all that bifurcation of different probability lines of the, waveform. What the universe would really mean in terms of namespaces. It does verge on the edge of inconceivable. It's like constantly bifurcating trees, umbrella shapes of so massively subdividing of, equally high resolution stuff that what level of nesting really means anything at any point. It then becomes a question of navigating your way to the good stuff, which could be at any nesting level. It could be at any level of simulation, universe within universe. What does it matter? What does it matter? What really matters is the stuff that Hitchhiker's Guide was channeling, in that big questions have their answers being calculated. The nature of the questions are difficult to know, but moral absolutism might be one of them. Is there a golden rule? And this is where I always repeat the perfected golden rule. Do not do unto others as you would not have them do unto you, right? This is probably a fundamental cosmic truth. This is something we'll find coded within the laws of nature that works like particle physics, that ensures stable orbits that can stabilize for long enough periods of time. such that for all intents and purposes they're stable orbits. Now, there is no such thing as stable orbits. If entropy and decay and rules of thermodynamics are all true, then everything goes to hell in a heat death handbasket at some point. But how many philosophies out there are blossoming spontaneously? There's, I think I thought of it myself. Well, I did there for a while. That the purpose of life is to overcome entropy. It's to build entropy in a system. It's to create order where the other natural laws create randomness and chaos, and things fall apart. So if you want your meaning and purpose, there it is. Matter to self-boot the life process at very least, and the sentience process at best. And who's to say sentience, especially in human form, is best? Well, have some pride in the matter that you're built from. Do not, fill yourself with such self-hatred that you would say even the stuff that we've become through a process that admittedly had its violence. We effed and killed the Neanderthals out of existence. A little of this, a little of that. What suited the, perversions and habits and social mores and norms of the day, which were no more alien to them than what ours are today to us. The difference between species and races, today we call it races because we're all the same species. Back then, things that were arguably different species could still interbreed with each other successfully. So, maybe the whole concept of labeling these divisions is, you gotta label something. Stereotypes are accurate first-order approximations. Stereotypes are often accurate first-order approximations. Don't get angry at those who stereotype. It's a form of intelligence to be able to make rapid, accurate first-order approximations. Some might call it profiling. I guess so. I guess it is. So do rich profiling, accurate profiling, statistically fair and unbiased, if there can be such a thing, profiling. These are just fast lookups. Fast lookups can be good based on the quality of your hashing algorithm. And there you have it. This is a good place to start to wind down because my ride is going to be winding down and I'll be home soon. Home again, home again. I need to give my kids some sense of stability. We have to move out of this place because our lease is up and the landlords plan on selling it, and more power to them. It's a financially motivated thing. It's time for that income, that influx of resources for them. But I need to find a new place, just as my kid was getting used to the trampoline and the zip line, and I shall find a new place. And I shall do this while maintaining a strong sense of self, of pride in who I am, what I'm capable of, and what I'm doing, who I'm doing it with in my life, and how I'm going about it. The things I'm doing for my child, the steps I'm taking, the lengths I go to, the high order thinking that I'm bringing to play to make sure that they aren't consumed by anger in their life the way I am, to make sure that they have the correct perspective on anger. Your anger is valid. The reasons for your anger must be examined, because fight or flight, panic, anxiety neopinephrine, I gotta get that pronunciation down, but the heightened sense of awareness neurotransmitter that gets released in your blood when triggered in a certain way makes you assign blame, makes you think this is the source of my fear, my anger, my very problems, when it is not, when it is often the place from which your genuine solutions and support and ways of working through difficult times are emanating from. But familiarity breeds contempt, and you look at it and you see threat and danger. I say, boot your meta process. Allow that neopinephrine to wash over you and through you until you own it. And once you own that fear and you understand it as having filled its purpose in the moment, you allow new thoughts to drift in and to take hold.